can all kind of talk together. You're welcome to move up. Everyone sit in the back row. So this morning, giving our introductory talk is going to be Chris Leverone. Chris is a videographer and digital artist specializing in documentary filmmaking and 3D graphics. He works for Franklin TV in Franklin, Massachusetts, and is the producer of Pointing at the Moon, a Zen talk show showing Diego Villaseñor. Oh, hey, that's my name. Chris began practicing at the Providence Zen Center in October of 2022 and lives in North Attleboro with his wife-to-be, Dime, and their 2 reptiles. That wasn't meant to be funny, I don't know, but thank you. Thank you for laughing. And then answering questions this morning is going to be Tony Sagar. Tony is a Boddisattva teacher in our Sangha. He began practicing with Daesun Sanim in 1978 while in college at Brown University. He had lived and worked here at Providence Zen Center for some years and ordained with Daesun Sanim in 1986. He had been a monk for 21 years. Tony had a long period of being apart from the Quantum School of Zen, and he had been with another teacher for some time, but he returned here to the Quantum School of Zen in 2015. He and his girlfriend Randy recently relocated back to Providence, where he works as a psychotherapist. So, thank you both very much for your talks this morning.
In case anyone's wondering, the 2 reptiles are a snake and a gecko. So I'm going to tell you 2 short stories from my first year working in public access television. So the first story is, it was that first winter when I started working, and our high school hockey team had made it to a playoff game, and it was way down in Cape Cod. I knew it was going to be late at night. I didn't feel like going, so I lugged all my equipment. It was like 45-minute drive or whatever. And I got to the venue, and it was just loaded with people from the previous game because they just bulked them all together. So I had no way really to set up my equipment because they weren't going to let us into the press box because that was for real camera people. So we managed to get it barely set up. The game goes on, it's boring, they lose, and as I'm trying to pack up the equipment, there are people shuffling in for the next game, and they're encroaching in my space, they're stepping on my bags, they're yelling over to each other, hey, there's a free space over here, and saying, oh, don't worry guys, they're leaving. And so I started mocking them back to their faces. I'm saying to my coworker, okay, hey Jimmy, we're leaving, did you know we're leaving? So as I got out of there, I was just incensed, I was livid. I think I sped down 495 to get back to Franklin. At the time, I was still living with my parents, and when I got home, I got a beer from the fridge, and they were watching the evening news. And there was a story at that exact same arena that I was at, and I'm thinking, oh, this ought to be good. It turned out that that very same crowd that I was annoyed at, when their game started, the PA speaker playing the national anthem crapped out. And so these people picked up and were singing, and the Rockets regular. And they were heroes for the night. And I'm jumping up and down in my parents' living room with a beer in my hand going, I know the truth. I know these people are no good. And it felt strangely cathartic in a way to take it out on these people, even if I was just some peon in my parents' house. So anyway, I went to bed knowing the truth, and then the next day I totally forgot about it. So the second story, a short while after that, it might have been a month or so later, I did a series of event videos for our local senior center. They were doing a series of events on the topic of aging and disability. And there was a workshop that was being done on the topic of hearing loss. And there was going to be a performance by a violinist. And I like classical music, so I said, okay, I'll go check that out. So turned out that the violinist, she was a woman maybe in her late 50s, and she actually was deep into hearing loss herself. She couldn't hear high-pitched notes anymore. And she played for the room, and it was beautiful in its own way. It wasn't perfect. She couldn't hear the high-pitched notes anymore, so she wasn't articulating them perfectly. But there was a confidence and a professionalism to the way that she performed. And you could see that she really was at peace with what she was doing. And that experience left a deep impression on me. At the time, I had an on and off private meditation practice. I'd read a couple of introductory Buddhist things. And I was still kind of intellectually trying to pick up the pieces and put that experience together. What was so profound about that? I guess I could have asked her, but I didn't. And so several years later, when I started practicing here, after several months of practicing together action and meditating in a group and helping out So Young in the garden, etc., some of those things started to make a bit more sense to me. So the first story I told you, where I was the bad guy, I was just irritated at the world. I think that came from a place of not really knowing how to be a friend to people, because I've struggled with that throughout my life. I've had a really hard time opening up to people. I'm suspicious of strangers by habit. I have a lot of nervous tics that come out when I'm talking to people that I don't know. And whenever I got a chance to express some kind of cathartic disregard for people, I would take it. And I think to interpret that first story at the hockey rink, maybe I was justified in being annoyed at the people that were there. But what I saw on the TV that night when they were singing the national anthem together, that was just together action. They didn't have to think about it. The PA system went out, and without thinking, they all just moved together and finished the piece. And it was a beautiful moment for them. In fact, so beautiful that the news decided to share it with everyone in the world, including my parents and myself. So then the second story about the violinist, I don't think I have an answer for why she does what she does, but it reminds me of the perennial question around here. Why do you eat every day? And I suppose I'll leave it there. So.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for your wonderful talk and genuine. Thank you. And remind me of when you were talking about the first story and how it's so easy for us. It's one of the things we're so good at. I know I am, of the stories we make up about others or situations when we see things through our own particular lens rather than seeing things clearly as they are. And just remind me of a little story which I've probably told before. I don't know if I have or not, but it's in one of Jack Kornfield. Maybe many of you know him as a very well-known Theravada Vipassana teacher. One of his books is telling the story of a student of his who had, I think he was a pretty new student, but had just done some retreats and things, and he was a vet, an army vet, or he was still in the military. Anyway, one day he was in the supermarket or something like that, and he was in the checkout line, and then he was maybe the third or fourth person in line, and then ahead of him was a woman, a relatively young woman with a little baby, and then the checkout woman, so that the mother and the baby, she was spending quite a bit of time and talking, and the checkout woman was quite engaged with that woman and the baby and all. And oh no, I'm sorry, back up. It was a little bit older woman, and then the checkout woman was the younger one, and there was this baby that was the little bit older woman was in her care. So they spent like a little bit of time, and then this guy in line, the student Jack Kornfield's student, was getting kind of annoyed. It's like, oh, are we taking, it's okay a couple of seconds, but this is getting a little bit long. I got to get going. He was getting pissed off, and he had just recently come from this retreat, where he really kind of had, accessed some deep silence and things like that. But anyway, but he was getting kind of, his mind was getting agitated. And then eventually, when it came his turn to check out, and then the checkout woman said, maybe there was something that prompted her to say this, but she said, oh yeah, it was a cute baby, right? Cute. And then and he said, yeah, sure, yeah. And she said, it's actually, that's my that baby, that's my daughter. I think maybe he had his military clothes on, and then that's perhaps why I think that's why she kind of opened up to him a bit. And she said, yeah, and that was my mother. She helps me take care. My husband was killed in service, so I'm a single parent. And then he just, in that moment, he just like, oh, he felt, of course, he just saw his mind. He felt so bad because he had this whole story about why it's taking all this time, and I got to get where I'm going, and then he just saw his mind, and it was very strong teaching for him. So, yeah. So, we all do that in so many ways. I speak for myself, I know. So, yeah. Any questions? Anybody have about? Yeah, any questions about anything that Chris shared or anything?
I have a question. I think this is like it's something really crucial for us. Like, I've always had a deep love of people because I grew up maybe in the wilderness when there wasn't many people around, and I just appreciate every human that I see, But I see that a lot, what Chris was talking about, like people don't like strangers, they don't trust, they're not open. How do you develop that love of people or open your heart like that?
Yeah, thank you. What else name? Yeah. Well, that's what, that's so much what our practice is about, of course, and love and compassion. We're not separate. We and all beings are not separate. We're all part of one great, huge family, and so and that. So of course, that's so much of what our practice in the Dharma path is about, is cultivating that love and compassion and non-separation, and so there's. Our life experience is our greatest teachings, right? And so, just like Chris shared those two stories in that first one, those are impactful experiences for him. In the first one, allowed him, right, to see his mind a little bit more and the judgments and things. And so through that was an important experience for you. So probably some more opening, some more compassion, some more love, some more connection, some more non-separation from others. And so it's really about being open to our experience, right? Because our experience is always teaching us, every experience we have, whatever that experience is. And and being really open to what I'm talking about is seeing our own minds moment to moment in each situation, day to day, just doing our best to do that, and being open. And so, and everything is practice. So our everyday life, our experiences are always teaching us, as Chris just shared a few of just two of his own personal ones, and. And then of course, and then there's our formal practice, which is very important, because our formal practice, going into that, the directness of formal practice, whether it's sitting meditation, walking meditation, chanting meditation, formal meals meditation, bowing meditation, doing Kangan practice, all the different practices we do here, that helps to support us so much so that in everyday life too we can meet our experience, with more openness and don't know mind. So it's really it's about just really being open to our experience, right? And that willingness to see, right? And that's why we often talk about the practice of what is this, right? That's one of our, Chris, we have many questions. He mentioned one which we all, if we're all doing Kangan practice with our teachers, the Zen masters and Master Dharma teachers in our school, if you haven't already, if you do Kangan practice, at some point you're going to get asked that question, why do you eat every day, right? And then, so there's so many questions we haven't, and then we often talk about keeping this question of, what is this? What is this? And then don't know. Don't know mind is before thinking mind. Right, so the don't know mind is the mind which just meets this experience, this moment just as it is, right? So that's striving not rather than through our filter or our own idea about it, just as it is, right? And when we're in that place, then we're fully engaged in whatever that means, right? And so. And then if there's an action that's required of us, then we can take that action. Maybe there's no action is required, then we don't. Maybe sometimes words are necessary, sometimes not. Sometimes we open our mouths when we shouldn't. If we're in don't know and we kind of see that, then maybe we nip that in the bud. But they're just again, that keeping that mind of what is this, right, over and over again in our daily life on the cushion too, then that's cultivating, then, all these practices, that's cultivating our love and compassion, because more and more then we're able to be with things as they are. And then, and when we're not, we're human beings, right? So sometimes we're clearer, sometimes we're less clear, sometimes we're more in don't know, sometimes we're less in don't know, but it's all okay, it's all part of the practice. And so when we have a little hiccup or something, we see our own mind, our own karma appears, gets in the way, then we see that, and that's a teaching, that we're open, don't have to beat ourselves up about it. Loving compassion means having loving compassion for ourselves as well as others. We're not separate. So, yeah, so the main thing is that openness to what is. Openness to what is. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Also, I just wanted to acknowledge everyone online. Thank you for joining today. Nice to see you all. And so if anyone online has a question too, please just raise your hand or, yeah. Yes, please. Yeah.
Sometimes I remind myself that it's not about me, and also not to take things so personally, as well as those techniques that you mentioned. Thank you.
As long
as well as those techniques that you mentioned.
Yeah. Thank you. Great. Yeah, that's important. Remembering that it's not it's not always about me, and not taking it personally. Yeah, and and that's something, also again, I speak for myself, but I think I speak for most people, but, that's something I know it can fall into. It's our conditioning. That's another manifestation of our human conditioning in this world, in the societies we live in. And it's so easy to make things about me. And that comes from attachment to us, I, my, me, the small I, right? That's the separate I. That's the delusional I that we so much think exists. That's so much the root of our suffering. But that I is just it is just a delusion. It is just an illusion. We're not separate, and so but it's. But when we're in that space, then it's very easy to make it about us, or to take things personally when they're not. And again, just seeing that, right? Seeing that, being that like open. Sometimes when we're this is one of the things that practice cultivates and helps us to do, is to see our own mind and our own energy. Right? with time we get a little bit better. Maybe we see it a little bit quicker. Maybe it doesn't go, it doesn't go as far. We don't make as much of a shit of it all. Sometimes we do. And so, so just seeing, and so whenever if we, whenever we see that can a little bit pick up the signs, the mind, the mind is tightening, the body is tightening. There's some, if we can just see that, then there's usually there's something, usually there's some I there. There's some I is appearing a little bit, there's too much I, my, me is usually appearing. And if we can just see that, that tightening, aversion appears. But we can just see that, and at that time, just take a breath, take a few breaths, and just, if we can just ask ourselves, okay, what is this? Just come back. So, when we, if we're in an everyday life situation, maybe we're having a meeting with our boss, or, some situation out in everyday life. It's not like we can maybe just go and meditate and cool down for a couple of minutes or half an hour. When we can do that, fine, but in everyday life, often we can't do that. But in any given moment, we can just take a moment and take a breath and come back to our center. Maybe take a breath, bring the air down into the diaphragm, and just take a breath or two. We can do that in the middle of a meeting. We can do that when another person's right in front of us and continue the conversation. Take a breath, settle the mind energy, and we can always pose this to ourselves in any everyday life situation. Again, even when we're engaged with others, just what is this for a moment? That can just appear. And then it helps us to come back a little bit, come back to don't know, kind of reset. It helps us to kind of clean our slate, a little bit. And even if it's just some percentage, we get even just a little space, then it's easier. It's easier. And then more, the mind settles, and then maybe we're able to be more of things, as they are, in a wiser way. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Those are very important things, I think, for us all to keep aware of. Yeah, to remain aware of, not taking it personal. Yeah, and then when something is personal, all right, that shouldn't shake our center either. Okay, it's going to be personal. Maybe the person has a good point. Maybe we have to work something out. Maybe that's a mirror for myself. Oh yeah, I wasn't so kind there. I didn't handle that so well. Maybe it's the other person's stuff and it's not our stuff, and we just see that, and that's okay. We just see it as it is. But it doesn't have to throw us off, whether it's appropriate, pertinent feedback or a mirror for us, or it's not. It's the other person's stuff. Either way, it doesn't have to throw us off center and then throw us into our own story about it all. Thank you. David.
Lets me think about the question a little bit. So, when I was a new practitioner, 8 years ago, I found this all very exciting and just very motivating to really dig in and read all the books and gobble it all up. And then 8 years later, it gets repetitious, same material over and over again. We keep teaching the same lessons over and over and over again. You've been at it a little bit longer than me, right? 20-something years or so?
A bit longer than that, actually.
Yeah, okay, so...
You're making me younger than I am from 1978, thank you, but I'm quite a bit older.
Okay, so
thank you.
How do you find the motivation to keep at it?
Thank you. Good question. Great question. Yeah, so for me, my experience is that the motivation comes because this is the most important thing that I can do, right? There are a lot of important things to do in this life, but practicing the essence of what that is the most important thing, right? Because for me, you know, the Dharma, okay, the Dharma, with the, you know, and the teachings we receive from Shakyamuni, Buddha down all this way through all the you know, all the lineages and everything. So that's what that is. My experience of it is that, you know, it's not dogma, it's not religion. It's about practicing, and that's what the Dharma is about, is waking up to our true human nature, right? And so, which is before thinking, before name and form. That's why it's not religion and there's no dogma. And, you know, we can get into that whole thing in a lot more. But, and so for me, it's waking up to our true human nature. So if I'm not practicing and doing my best to take care of my own mind and being and how I, you know, navigate and engage in this world, then what the hell am I doing? Then, you know, then that's just a lot of suffering. Then I'm going to suffer, and I'm surely going to create more suffering for others. So for me, I've, you know, from the day one when I began to practice, and I had a quite an interesting, profound experience that brought me to it. From that day on, I've never doubted, never deviated from the practice. I've had lots of ups and downs and difficult experiences in my life and all that stuff, but I've never deviated from the practice, because it is the most natural thing that I can be doing, and I, you know, one thing I understand from you know, a number of the teachers I've had or have. As to, and then just from my own experience, as long as I have this human body, as long as we have this human body, then practicing is very important. What I've been taught is it has something to do with, on the one hand, the makeup of the human, our human form body, from the, you know, the elements and how everything it's the construction, how it's composed, and then the human, and then our mind. And so if we don't practice and take care of our own minds, even if we've had a great awakening experience, but if we don't keep practicing, that awakening experience, that'll become tarnished. And because as long as we have this human body, we have to practice, right? And so that's where the motivation comes, and the joy in it. And because if we're not doing that, then my karma, I'm just going to be led by my karma. Again, I'm going to suffer a lot more, and I'm going to make more hardship and suffering for others. And so, you know, Zen Master Song San, our founding teacher, you know, one of the things he always, you know, he said many things. One thing he said all the time was, enlightenment, to get enlightenment's not a big deal. That's very easy, you know, but keeping enlightenment, that's hard, and that's the real practice. You know, sometimes we have the impression, maybe in Buddhist circles or whatever, and we read something, or we read some of this, you know, the cool stories of Zen master when this or that happened and they got enlightenment, and sometimes we have this erroneous impression that a person gets enlightenment, has this awakening, this experience, this opening, and then they're done forever. It's like, yeah, they're just done forever, right? But that's not the way it is. You always have to practice, like every day, practice, because that awakening, that realization, it will become tarnished if we don't. It's guaranteed as long as we have this human existence, this human body. And so not Zen Master Song San, but another teacher I had, he always said, never trust a teacher. You know, a teacher that you're really following, you know, maybe under his guidance or whatever, or a teacher that somehow you're in some relationship with. Never trust a teacher who doesn't practice him or herself continuously. And there are teachers out there who, you know, who maybe get this, you know, get an awakening. There's somehow they got enlightenment or whatever, and then they don't practice, or they don't, and then the ego grows, and then they do harmful things. they abuse their position or whatever it may be. So this one teacher always said, you never trust a teacher who doesn't practice him or herself every day, right? Because, yeah. And Zen Master Sung San, he got enlightenment and he got transmission when he was, 20 whatever, I don't remember, and he died when he was, 78, and every day he practiced, and he used to, I don't know what year he had to stop when he was much older, but I know when I knew him, and for many years after, because there was this period of separation, he used to get up every morning and do 500 prostrations before we did our 108 prostrations, in the Dharma hall together, here or wherever he was, whatever place or Zen Center. Every morning, he'd get up really early. So, so it's like that. And so anyway, that's the, that's the motivation and the joy. And, I would hope for all of us, it never gets boring or tedious or old, and, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And sometimes there are times when we don't feel like doing it, we're tired or whatever, and whatever, but still we should, not just to keep up our practice. And some days we may practice a bit more than others, whatever, but just keep practicing. It's very important.
Just have a question. Do you think like political views, right? Like I'm starting to realize more and more that like it's a way to like divide us, right? Do you think that like this path, it's kind of like counterproductive to have views on like politics and stuff like that?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Thank you. Well, to your first thing, politics certainly can be very divisive, as we all know, very much always has been. But maybe we're in a very extreme place with that right now in our country. But is practice? How did you word that again? Is practice counterproductive to? Is it counterproductive
to have views on politics?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So. No, I don't think so. Politics is, I hate politics. I loved it. It was so great in the 2020 election. I think it was the Democratic National Convention, and Michelle Obama, she's just a great person, she gave her little talk, in support of Biden. And she said, one of the first things she says, you all know me, I hate politics. I was like, that was so great. Here this, the former First Lady of a, two-term First Lady said that. And it was just like, that just like spoke to me. I was like, he's great. Anyway, politics is one of those, necessary evils. And there's better politics and there's worse politics. And, but, I'm someone who, I keep abreast of the things, and I don't read a whole lot, and I would, never be good on any debate or anything like that, or something around politics. But politics are important because that does determine a lot of how a country, a society is run. Laws that are going into effect. And for me, it all comes down to what's really. What's best for the people? What's best for the people, and what I would, for me, what's good politics is where it's really considering the people, and there is compassion and care within it. It's just so often that it doesn't happen that way, because as we all know, politics can be incredibly dirty. And stuff. So politics is a hotbed for a lot of suffering, a lot of greed, a lot of desire, and all those kinds of things. But not all, not all politicians, there are politicians who are bigger minded than that. And so, so sometimes we may not be a super political person, but I do believe that we have a voice, and if we're not involved in politics in any way, in any direct way, or in the community way, we still have a voice, which is our vote. And so for me, it just comes down to using my vote to cast that for the person who I think, and the choices are not always great, right? But still, just then casting that vote for the person who I think will make maybe the best decisions given the situation, right? And so so it doesn't. Yeah, we don't. It's not that as a practitioner we should have nothing to do with politics, or and if one so chooses, that's one's choice. It's okay. It's no absolute right or wrong, but it doesn't mean that we have to be completely removed from it. Yeah, and it'd be wonderful if there were, and there are some out there. I can't name them. I really don't know who they are, but there are some. But I hope more and more will have politicians who are practitioners, of meditation and mindfulness and this kind of stuff. It'll be it would help. So.
Like attachment to views is what causes the suffering for us. Yes, often it is, but again, what are the views, right? And why, what are the views, and what's my intention in holding this view, or where am I coming from, right? Where am I coming from? And again, I'm no expert on this stuff, but I think that's what's important. So if I have a certain view or a line in a certain political way, or if a certain politician, what's my intention, and how is this helping? How is this helping? Is it helping? And who is it helping? Who is it helping? Is it only helping, just a small little select group or whatever? Who's it helping? Yeah. So, but if we're attached, if we're attached to any view, like just attach and won't hold on, and yes, that leads to suffering. Yeah. But again, our views are, when our views come more from a place of that a big mind and really of love and compassion, then that's a little bit different, I would say. Yeah. And good. Thank you for your question. Thank you. And so, but you're right. I just want to go back to that for one moment. So even if we have a view, and that view isn't being upheld, by the powers that be, by the Supreme Court, by our, local politicians, by the President of the United States, and if that view that I have isn't being upheld, because I see it differently and wish for a different outcome. If I just hold on to that and I don't accept it, I'm going to suffer. But then it's like, all right, this was decided. I think it's terrible. I don't agree with it. But we have to just, but now where do we go from here, right? Where do we go from here? If I just hold on to my view, then I will suffer. So in that sense, on that level, what you said is true. And that's always true. If we attach to a certain view, then we will suffer. Because things are always changing too. And sometimes, things aren't going to turn out how I want it to be. I'm not going to get what I want or wish it to be. If I just attach that, suffering, sure.
So that's true. That's true. Yeah. I was talking more about the believing in one's view, and and again where that's coming from, right? What else?
Oh yeah. So you mentioned Sung Sansim. I remember, like, he had a certain way of dealing with turmoil or things going on with people that really depend on his center and practice, and not really go into the weeds too much. So I wonder, like, you're a therapist, like, how do you counsel people, or how do you work on that when you have a lot of things, like maybe this is just something that can be put down and just go deeply into your practice, or find your center and not really bother too much?
Right.
But people need a lot of communication too, right?
Yeah. So your question is, as a therapist, how I...
Yes, I mean, you teach meditation too, don't you?
Yes.
Or how do you work with people when they have turmoil? Do you direct them inward?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nelson. Well, there's a lot of ways, and with clients, teaching them when it's the right time, which, if I work with someone long enough, then usually always get to that at some point. I mean, it's rarely the very first thing. Maybe it's really rarely the first thing. But teaching clients about like meditation and mindfulness is almost always is appropriate and comes up, because it's a way of helping people. Just teaching those skills, even if it's just very basic skills. Teaching them how to be with their own mind and thoughts. More the boss, how to work with their own minds in that way is obviously, as we all know, is hugely helpful. But as a therapist, that's just one piece of it. And so, as you mentioned, people have can have a lot of turmoil, and everyone, we all have trauma. Having this human existence, we all have trauma. We always, in our profession, we talk about big T trauma, big T and small t. And, big T trauma are the big things, like having been a victim of abuse, whatever the nature of that abuse may be. Having, been a victim of violence, having been in a significant accident, witnessed a tragedy, these kinds of things. And then there's small T trauma, just all this smaller stuff. And so, so people can have a lot of turmoil. And so, so teaching people some mindfulness, some meditation skills and things like that, that's great. But then there's, as a therapist, there's other things that are necessary too. That is not enough. And so, all of us who are therapists usually are trained in one or more than one modalities, psychotherapeutic modalities that resonate with the therapist and go with. And so then it's never about the modality; it's how the modality is used. But then those modalities are used, right? So then you employ those modalities when you have to, and that provides a framework for working through particular things, challenges for the client, trauma, whatever it may be. And so I'm trained in EMDR, which is specific for trauma, and I'm also trained in internal family systems, IFS work. It's not called IFS or parts work. But I'm not going to, it's not the time or place to get into those modalities, but then you use those things, right? And so, and I think this maybe relates to your question, for me, knowing that, I guess if I don't have a motto as a therapist. I don't think most we don't usually have mottos. But I guess if I had one, it would probably be, everything's workable. It's workable. Everything's workable. Because we do have this true, if we want to call it true self, our core self, our essence, whatever, we do have that. And in Dharma practice, it's like we're getting in touch with that more and more. Right? And so every person we work with, I work with, every client, I know that. So so for me, like, I see the person, I see their truth, their core. And then there's all this stuff going on. And sometimes for some clients, it's terrible. Some clients have tragically been subjected to terrible traumas, terrible abuse, whatever things, right? But help, little by little, supporting them, helping them through that. So then they're accessing more and more their truth, their core, right? And that's what the work's about. And so, so I'm thankful that I came to this. It's a second profession, so to speak, and I'm kind of thankful I came to it later in life with the experience of mindfulness and meditation and all that I have, and I'm able to bring that in. So it all comes together. All right, we are done. Diego was up there, and so right on time. Thank you everyone for coming today, in person and online. Thank you very much.
And thank you both for your wonderful talks this morning. Just a couple of announcements to go ahead and round us out. First, upcoming retreats. As you all know, we hold retreats at least once a month here, and they're a wonderful opportunity to really deepen and sink into your practice. And so our next one is going to be with our guiding teacher, Zen Master, co-guiding teacher, Zen Master Tan Gong, and this will be July 6th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You can sign up online at providencezen.org. All are welcome. It's a wonderful place to come, not just practice, learn the forms, make mistakes, and do so in a really, really, really great environment. So please, come sit retreat. Then, of course, we've got the big one, the big retreat, which is our summer Kyolche, which is coming up, which we hold every summer up at the beautiful Diamond Hill Zen Monastery. If you haven't seen it, take a look. It's on the hill right here behind the Zen Center, a really, really great place of practice. This year, it's going to run July 6th through August 2nd. Every week, there's going to be a new teacher, and you are welcome to sit with 3 days at minimum or intervals thereof. Our entry points are going to be Wednesdays and Saturdays. Because this is our one of 2 intensive retreats that we do for long periods of time, we do require you to already have some retreat experience with us before sitting, just so you can be familiar with the forms and to help maintain the practice atmosphere that's going on up at the monastery. Finally, programs that we have going on. Every Tuesday, we hold a refuge recovery meeting here at the Zen Center. This is at 7 p.m. in the TV room hidden behind the bedrooms. If you are struggling with addiction in any way, shape, or form, this is a wonderful place to come and do that within a Buddhist-inspired environment. This is led by Don Boudreau, who has been with this program and mentoring for many, many, many decades. And finally, it is summer, as we all know, and summer means we get to start to harvest some of the crops that have been planted. So today, outside on your way out, So Young, our garden master, has started setting up her stand with all of her wonderful organic vegetables. Feel free to stop by on the way out, pick up some for yourself, and she's also taking requests for people who may want to order things in the future from her. So you can go ahead and stop by and give her a talk as well. Last but not least, practice is always free. Electricity and streaming is not. As I always say, we rely on our donations for 30 to 40% of our operating expenses here at the Providence Zen Center. So if you would like to help support us, we do gratefully accept donations online at providencezen.org, or in person, there's a small donation box near the entrance. Another way you can consider supporting us is by becoming a member of the school. You'll pay monthly dues, half go to the school, half go to the Providence Zen Center, and this also gives you various discounts on retreats, free access to the Primary Point magazine that the school publishes, and other little goodies as well. So it's a nice little way of just being able to support us without having to think about it all the time, and you get some treats out of it. And I think that's everything. So thank you all so much again for coming, and we'll see you next Sunday.